Great to see everybody. I believe we don't need to do the roll. Do you need to do a roll call?
No,
You sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so we don't need to do a roll
Why don't
call.
we take it, because we have some people late and stuff. Just
Great.
take the-
Let's do a roll call.
This way I'll document it. Mrs. Beal,
Branson.
Ms. Gilman,
Here.
Ms. Hayes,
Present.
Mr. McCarthy,
Here.
Mr. McGovern,
Here.
Ms. Kalamas,
Here.
Ms. Telerico,
Here.
Ms. Tortorello,
Here.
Mr. Weinstein.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to start the president's report. So on today's agenda, we have a discussion under policy around the road forward, around health and safety, road forward around COVID health and safety. And so today, we're going to have a discussion about that, about recently the governor talked about extending the mandate through March 7th, and then after March 7th, there will be a mandate for masks. So we're going to talk about that at that point in time. And I just wanted to say some things for the general people, for everybody that's listening or dialed in. We don't have anybody in the room today other than board members. So first off, we have 3 meetings, this meeting and 2 other meetings before the 7th. So we are going to take our time and talk about it and discuss it. There are things that kind of relate to the topic of masks, no masks. It's kind of, it also relates to things like quarantine policy and those kind of things. So there's other things that also relate to it. I just want to say that, you know, I've received a lot of emails, and I know some of my other fellow board members have received emails around the topic. And probably the thing that kind of hit me is at the end of the day, we're all trying to figure out the best way forward for the students, the teachers, the administrators, the staff, and figure out the best way forward. And everybody, I appreciate all the emails I got and some of the heartfelt emails that were received, and I really appreciate all that. We have a lot of information to digest. I don't think there's anybody who is not kind of fed up with this whole COVID situation. But at the end, we want to make sure we're balancing, you know, all the things that kind of go on related to any decision we're going to make. And so we need to, you know, take a lot of things into account. So I don't think there's one side or another side. I think it's we're all trying to come up with what the prudent side is, and that's what we're going to be talking about and doing that in a real, you know, honest and sincere method. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the open comment session. Before the open comment session, just so everybody who does dial in and wants to make a comment, I want to kind of talk to, you know, how I would appreciate those comments being made and all those things. And just do remember that everybody here is really on the side of the kids, the parents, the teachers, the administrators, and staff. We're all just on we're all on that side and trying to do the best we can for all concerned parties. Okay, so I'll get to that when we get to the right before we get to the open discussion. So saying all that, let me hand it over to Jim. And Jim, you could give us a superintendent's report if you don't mind.
Well, thanks, Jeff.
Sure.
Appreciate that. So just to follow up, obviously, as Jeff said, you know, the governor announced yesterday that the mask mandate from his perspective will come to an end effective March 7th. He did also say that the Department of Health will be providing guidance in the coming days, weeks, hopefully before March 6th, that will provide a little bit more detail as to what an expectation may be moving forward. So we'll look forward to that guidance and you know, we'll look forward to what that says, and because we have said all along that we will follow the guidance. So let's see what that guidance tells us. Similarly, along with discussions about masks, and Jeff alluded to this, is really more discussion needs to be had, and we'll probably be coming forward in the coming weeks with some plans about quarantine and the quarantining of in-district close contacts. More and more districts are no longer quarantining in district close contacts. Family close contacts, yes. In district close contacts, more and more are moving away from that. Based on the premise that COVID is not going to go away, that we are going to learn as a society to have to navigate school life with COVID. And will we be masking and will we be quarantining indefinitely? And I think we would all agree the answer to that is probably no, right? So in the coming weeks, I'm also going to be bringing some ideas forward as to, as similar to what Middletown is doing, Wall just recently started doing, Marlborough recently started doing, Millstone, more and more districts, once again, getting away from quarantining close contacts from in school, because overwhelmingly, those folks are not coming up positive for COVID, right? So it's keeping well students in school while trying to, obviously take people who are not well and having them stay home, right? That's the idea. So more to come on that as the weeks progress.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Does that also have conversation about possibly stopping the remote learning altogether? If, going back to when you're sick and
At this point, the other districts that I've seen, if they're home, if a person is home for COVID and able to attend school, or have been identified as a close contact at home, and the distinction there is because the prevalence of getting COVID for an in-home contact is fairly significant compared to in school. So that's why there's a distinction. And from what I've seen, that option, at least for this year, for those districts that have moved in that direction, has remained for COVID-related only. Similar to us, if you're sick because you're sick, then you're sick because you're sick. But that's part of the conversation. I think at this point, as long as a student was either quarantined, we would not change those rules for a quarantine due to COVID student
thanks.
Okay.
for this school year at least. Okay. Cases continue to be in a very manageable place. I think you've seen from my weekly reports, we've dropped dramatically. We only had 11 cases in the district last week, which was, back to our sort of September, October levels. One of our schools has not had a case in over 2 weeks reported, which is, I noticed I didn't say the school. So,
Yeah, now you said that.
so, it's been good, which means fewer kids out, more kids in school, more adults in school. This is what we want. This is more like it, right? So hopefully we can continue to stay the course and move in that direction. So that's where we are.
Okay.
All right.
Great. So kind of moving along here. Ms. Achuba, do you have, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm
Do you have a
sorry.
question?
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the voluntary kids testing.
Mhm.
How are we faring with that? I would imagine not too many positives, or if any, right?
I haven't heard of any positives with the
Okay.
kids yet. I mean, as we expected, the first week that it started was a little rough. One day, they were supposed to come in one day, they canceled,
Yeah.
they came the next day, but then told us they were canceling and then showed up at the original time. It's a typical Rover kind of experience, but from what I understand, we did get through that first week with everybody, all the schools testing. I'm not aware of anyone who came up positive as a result of that testing. I will tell you that many of the parents who initially said they were interested and agreed have backed out of it. So, I don't know if whether they just didn't care for the experience or whatever it may be. Like, I know one of our schools was started out with about 20 and is down to about 7 or 8. So, but it's going. And, it's very interesting because one of the things that we're looking at in talking about the no quarantine is the Children's Hospital Philadelphia guidelines, which, everybody kind of has their guidelines, but CHOP, obviously a very famous health institution, has put out their own guidelines, which I know the Philadelphia Public Schools is using to help guide them. And one of the things they actually talk about there is ending weekly testing of students, staff, what have you. So as of now, it stays and we'll continue it, but it'll be interesting to see how that progresses over the next couple of weeks, because I also think maybe some parents with the overall cases going down so much, I think they were much more concerned about it when there were 270 cases as compared to now 11. So, that's part of it. But I think, it was certainly not without its bumps the first week and change, but that was how it was with the teachers when it started, and that has smoothed out a little bit because that's still going and going well.
And my only question to that is, as one of the parents who signed up, I think it's great. My kid did it. My older kid did not show up for it. So, I guess the onus is on the kid sometimes at the middle school, because it was during his lunch and he
I think they
forgot.
set up a time for them.
Yeah,
Tell them to
and
come.
you can't really ask an 11-year-old to do that on their own. I've talked to him about that. But is there any way to make it a blanket permission slip or something, do you know? Because if you have multiple kids and you have to submit something every week, I don't know, maybe that's why some people are a little.
It's my understanding that it's the registration is a one time, but that weekly paper is something they do look for each week. That's
Yeah,
my
it's a little
understanding.
cumbersome, but okay.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Do you have a question?
I saw at a flyer that we're offering vaccinations
Yeah,
for
we-
ages 5 and up.
Yes. Yes, we're going to do another vaccination clinic on the 17th. That's next week. I think the flyer just went out today. So, and then again on March 10th as the follow-up, and that the March 10th one will be at Wanamasa. That's just the building that was available that day. So the first one at the high school and then the follow-up at Wanamasa. So this, the Health Commission had asked us if they wanted us to do another, and we've worked very well with them. We said, sure. It'll be interesting to see. Now it's my understanding that they may be giving authorization for below 5-year-old soon. So that might,
Below 5.
below 5. So that might, I think in March, I heard that might be coming. So that may be another sort of wave of people who may choose to have their children vaccinated. We'll see how that goes.
Are we doing it at Wanamassa arbitrarily or because their numbers percentage?
No, it's the only building that was available
Okay.
to have it.
Okay. I don't see any questions from Grace hand. I don't see her hand up, so we're gonna kind of move on. Ms. Truba,
Yes,
do you have anything you'd like to
a
talk to?
couple of quick things. So
Great, take your
this week, we are meeting with the administration. We have all of the district asks for the 22-23 budget for next year. So the administrators are going to meet briefly on that just to see where we are versus the projected revenues that we think we're getting for next year. Friday, we are having the bid opening for the HVAC and curtain wall project that we are choosing to do with some of the ARP 3 funds that we were allotted by the state.
Mhm.
And then finally, some really good news. The Chamber of Commerce of Greater Ocean Township awarded the entire IT organization within the school the 2022 Unsung Hero Team Award
Oh,
for all
very
of
nice.
the work that they've done through the pandemic and ensuring that the students have their Chromebooks and the IT needs of the school were met. So they're
Very
having a
nice.
big.
And if I can add, before we applaud, it's my understanding too that one of our guidance counselors, and this is National School Counseling Week, Nicole Morrow is also going to be a recipient. of
Oh,
that.
okay. I
So-
didn't know that.
wonderful.
So that'll be very
Okay.
nice.
Deserving.
And because of the help through the pandemic as well?
I think through most of the work that she does, she works with the chamber to help get the recipients of the chamber scholarships, and she does a lot of work.
So I mean,
With the chamber.
that was tremendous news. I'm
Very
very,
nice.
Excellent.
proud of
What
the
is the
IT guy.
What is the date of that? Do you know?
March 8th at 12 o'clock, and that's also when they are changing their officers within the Chamber of
Right.
Commerce.
It will be held here.
I don't know. I can get
No,
that
it's-
information.
No, it's
I'd
usually
like
at
to
the
know
English
that.
Manor.
Oh, No, I think.
Oh,
they
no,
moved
they're
it to
changing it?
Falco's. Last year it was.
Oh, that's right, it
Falco's.
is Falcon.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course, that's
I think
right.
I read
Yeah,
it.
we went there,
That's right.
we
We
went
went
there
Yeah.
last year.
So that
Yeah, I
would be
think
nice.
it
So
is
you'd
going to
like
be
to
at
see if
Falcos.
we, I could get,
Absolutely.
okay, let me, I will
Very nice.
absolutely ask that question. if we
Great,
can get
thanks, that's
some-
great. Congratulations to the
Yeah.
IT department.
Yep, they did a great job.
Congratulations To the counselor, very nice.
Yep.
Do you have a question, Ms. Hayes?
Yeah, I think it's a question and comment, just as you were speaking, Ms. Toreba. I know, I keep doing it.
That's
Toreba.
fine, that's fine.
And this is not you, but we all know I'm not in favor of the HVAC and curtain project. I know you said we, but, so can we get a copy of the RFP? Like the actual wording
It will absolutely all be public knowledge once it's all open. yes.
on our,
The RFP was actually published in the paper,
okay,
okay? So I can get you all that information.
like a PDF or
Yes,
whatever, okay.
absolutely.
And then I think we brought this up in maybe in December. The budget asks when each building, asks for something, like, how do we know what doesn't make it? Is there, will there be a list of these principals wanted these 6 things, but we don't have enough for these 2 things?
We-
How do,
I mean, I have the whole bottoms up roll up, so when I. meet
Well,
with the
typically
administrators,
we go through that, administratively. Usually if there's a column of anything new. And some of the asks that we decide are out or not feasible will go into sort of a column that you would see that, we've already made that decision. And then some things, it's really coming to the board table based on the priorities. So you should see all of anything that's above and beyond the budget from last year. So in other words, if it's been part of the budget, that's not necessarily put in that list, right? Because if it's in the budget, it's in the budget. So within that list so we would do it in capital, we do it in personnel, we do it in various, categories. And you would see what we believe administratively we couldn't, that we should forego for this year, and then some other things. Now, have there been times when some of those things that we've put in the no column have moved back and, so forth? Yeah, that's happened through
who's the
conversation
we? Yeah,
that we've had at the board level.
okay. So all of it. When you say we, you mean like all of us, not just like school
There's been
administration?
times
No,
where
board
things have been
conversation.
3s
Yeah.
that we've said, this has been on for 4 years, like it has to become a 2 or a 1, and we've gotten it in.
Yeah, we
You
did
know,
that. did
We
that
meaning
with,
the board.
Or, yeah.
Yes,
yes,
okay.
Yeah, we did that with,
We're the-
like the wireless
Yeah,
routers
some
and
wire.
Mhm.
networking.
Right.
And I don't know if you remember that list. It's 1, 2s, and 3s. Everything gets a
No.
number.
Is that the one that had the playgrounds as like a default and we didn't do the playgrounds last year? 'Cause for the elementary schools, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, it was,
It
so
was
it was
colored.
listed, and then the far right column, the furthest
Yeah.
right,
Was
usually
the-
has a 3, or it says out, like usually
Okay.
can put out where it would be a 3. And usually we only talked about the 1s and the 2s unless somebody was like, but wait a minute,
Right.
the playground is something we've talked, like that type of thing, then we talked about 3s. So generally, over the years, 3s have been there, but we haven't discussed them unless somebody said, I would like to discuss this. Because if you
Okay.
discuss every 3,
You'll be here.
you'll be here for
months.
2 months.
I mean, some things I think are very obvious,
Right.
right? And other things I think require more conversation.
Okay, I think we could go on.
Yep.
Okay. Let me, okay, so I think we're gonna go into public comment. Before we go into public comment, I just want to remind anybody who is gonna be making a comment, that, we have on the idea of the new mandate being repealed by March 7th. We've had a lot of conversations. We're gonna have some discussions around it today and have discussions around it. We have received a lot of information from parents and gotten a lot of perspective from all sides. We are going to be thinking about all the different angles to this. And so if you are making comments and we have multiple people making comments, let's just make sure we're not being too repetitive from one person's remark to the next. Okay. And also, if it's more about your own child situation, that's probably also a topic you can also take up with the superintendent or your house principal and discuss that specific situation with them. I don't believe that this is probably the right forum to share this specific situation. And if whoever's made a comment, just please keep calm and let's have good decorum And then we'll see where that goes, okay? So, Ms. Conway, are there any public comments at this time?
Good evening, President Weinstein. There are no public commenters at this time.
Oh, great. Okay.
None.
Thanks, Ms. Conway. So now we're going to move on to minutes. Irene?
Certainly. Board of Education Administration will discuss the following minutes in accordance with Board of Ed bylaws 168, recording of board meetings for the following meeting, our work meeting and executive session minutes from February 1st, 2021. Are there any comments or corrections on those minutes? If not, take a motion to put them in.
Second.
So.
On the minutes, can we just do it all in favor?
We could. Is everybody in favor that the minutes are approved and okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody's
Yes.
okay. Good. We're good.
Grace Ann, yes? Can't see your picture.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Thank you,
great.
Grace Ann.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Ms. Gelman.
You're welcome.
Ms. Talrico, Financial Management and Resource Services? Ms. Torello, sorry.
2 items this evening. 8.1, move to approve the use of facilities as per the attached memo dated February 8th, 2022. And 8.2, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss an amendment agreement with Gallagher Group, Inc. to extend the health insurance consulting services until 6/30/22 in accordance with the attached agreement. Before we discuss, can I get a second on 8.1?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Beal?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. McGovern?
Yes.
Ms. Kalamas?
Yes.
Ms. Talrico?
Yes.
Tortorella?
Excuse me, yes.
Mr. Weinstein?
Yes.
Okay, so just before we move on, 8.2, we are a little bit behind on going out to bids and requests for proposals because of the pandemic. So I just wanted to make sure we were covered for this school year with the current provider that we had, and this is all this amendment does.
Okay, so Gallagher is the current.
And it's this flat pricing, no changes to anything. They just go out and they help us broker all of our insurances. So it's the insurance, the employee insurance. So it's
Right.
vision, it's dental. They work with the state for us in terms of the different plans that we're in. Okay. And we'll vote on that in the regular meeting.
Great.
Okay.
Any other questions? Grace Ann, any questions from you?
Nope.
Okay, Natalie, thank you. Irene, instruction, education, student activities?
Yes, there are 8 items for this evening. 9.1, move to approve the attached memorandum dated February 2nd, 2022 for professional development activities in accordance with District Policy 6471 and NJAC 6A:23A-7. Attendance at said activities is fiscally prudent and will promote the delivery of instruction and or further the efficient operation of the district. Reimbursement for travel and related expenses shall be according to the Department of the Treasury guidelines in NJOMB Circular 06-02 and A-87. 9.2, move to approve a settlement agreement for student number 21-22, number 1, in accordance with the following as listed below. 9.3, the school calendar tentatively for 2022-2023. Board of Education and Administration will discuss the 2022-2023 school calendar for teachers and students in accordance with the attached copy dated January 2022. 9.4, Board of Education and Administration will discuss the request of college university students to fulfill their clinical practice requirements during the 2021-2022 school year in accordance with the attached memorandum dated February 2nd, 2022. 9.5, Board of Education and Administration will discuss curriculum writing requests to be completed before June 30th, 2022, in accordance with the attached memorandum dated February 3rd, 2022. 9.6, Board of Education and Administration will discuss a delayed opening schedule for state mandated testing in accordance with the attached memorandum dated February 1st, 2022. 9.7, Board of Education and Administration will discuss the following overnight trip request for the DECA grades 9 through 12 in Atlantic City for State Career Development Conference 2022. 9.8, Board of Education Liaisons will give an update from the Wellness Committee meeting held January 20th, 2022 as attached. I believe 9.1 we need, and 9.2, we need a,
Second.
right, 9.1, 9.2.
Okay. and
A
Ms.
motion?
McGovern? Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna take the roll on that.
For those,
Ms. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Gilman,
yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Can you just read which one's 9 point what?
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
One
One
and
and two,
two.
yes.
Yes. Are you okay? That's a
Yep.
yes? Okay.
Mhm.
Mr. McGovern, Mr. McCarthy, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Ms. McGovern?
Yeah.
Ms. Palamas?
Yes.
Ms. Telerico?
Yes.
Ms. Tortorella?
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein?
Yes.
Okay, we're good.
John and I will always just answer whether we're Mr.
Okay,
and Mrs.
okay.
Whichever one gets called
That's what
first.
happens when you're looking at one column and putting a check in the
Yes, I
other.
would.
Mix it right together. We're good.
Good to go.
Go over a few.
Is it okay if she?
Yes, yes, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Waiting for the
So 9.3 is, our tentative school calendar for next year. It's pretty straightforward. It really in many ways mirrors the calendar from 2 years ago. In terms of when different holidays fall and, when spring break falls and some of that. So, unless there's any questions on that.
I say March 15th should be like a district-wide fun day. Since there's not one day off.
Well, March is always that
Right.
rough month, March is always that rough month. I don't know, maybe we'll get some late snowstorms, you never know.
Can we,
See what I can conjure up.
Jim, winter break's always 6 days?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
Winter break is always 6 days? Easter Monday.
Are you saying winter break or?
Yeah. December, Christmas break.
Yeah, it's,
Starts on-
what do you mean? It's, in terms
Well,
of
it's a week.
weekdays?
Yeah, it's always 6 school days off.
I don't know that we can it's always, but it's typically the last day is the 23rd. And then, when New Year's falls on a Sunday, it's usually observed on the Monday. So,
Okay.
that is typically the holiday, if you will. So we typically take that as well.
Thank you.
Are we not pulling it up right now? Because it's not public? Why?
Oh, I don't know.
Can we-
I mean,
Mary
yeah,
Ann,
can you pull up
put it up for
the,
the public?
It's an administrative time.
oh, can she pull it up?
But is there a reason?
I mean, it's,
an Administrative?
Could you
It's
open
an
up-
it's an administrative, yes.
Okay.
But I'm sure you can. That's why she's trying.
Could you reach it? Just put it up.
So just so everybody knows the process, so we go through it administratively. I meet with the PTA presidents and we go through it. I meet with Mr. Riley and with the TOEA and we go through it. So we get all that input and then bring it to the board for approval.
Question.
Yes,
So when the rep mentioned that the school boards do not approve school calendars, are we looking to approve this?
yes, we typically do. While you don't have to approve it, we do put it up for approval typically.
But I guess my question is if I'm looking at changes coming forth. If we're looking at practices being put in place when you know better, you do better and different things, why would we still approve it if we're told it's an administrative function? And we're constantly told, leave administrative functions to administration.
Well,
I guess-
the administration is bringing it forward for sure.
Yeah, I think the administration.
No, I mean, like I said, I think it's been,
There's no, and I will preface it, there's no harm.
Yeah,
There's
right.
no ethics violation, but I'm just curious if.
yeah, I think that, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think there are some things that, that I believe the administration wants to make sure they're congruent with what the board wants. And so this goes, I think, to one of those, because you do have things like, religious holidays and making sure they're observed correctly. And if you had anything about those, so I think it's more that they just want to be congruent with us to make sure that they're checking all their bases. Is that a fair
Yeah,
statement?
primarily if something goes wrong, I can just say, well, the board approved it. So, no, I mean, I think it's also just traditionally what we've done here in this district. And so we just maintain that. I mean, if the board were to feel that this was something that they would not want to approve moving forward, that's certainly what you could do, but I don't, as you said, I don't think it's not a harm, it doesn't cause harm or anything like that. I agree. I think it just makes sure that you as a board are aware of it, that you're in support of what's being put forward and just, formalizes that.
I think it helps with transparency too.
Well, then can we add a winter break in February?
Add a winter break in February, and how about one in
Yeah.
March, and how about like a spring break and like a pre-spring break and then a
Pre-spring.
post-spring break?
Are there any other topics you'd like to?
Yes, I would like to discuss a couple
Yes.
other things.
Sure.
So the high school delayed opening, we are back, either fortunately or unfortunately, to a junior year graduation test on top of all the NJSLA, which will still be provided. So all 11th graders this year will take the NJGPA, the new graduation test. This is a test that students will not have to quote unquote pass, but they do have to sit for in order to graduate. Sometimes we talk about our students' performance on these things, and once again, it speaks to the motivation of a test that you don't have to necessarily achieve a certain score to graduate. We of course always want our kids to do as well as they possibly can, but unfortunately, sometimes the way these tests are structured doesn't always promote that, right? So the high school will be giving this, and because we need so many staff members to proctor the tests for all of the juniors, it really creates a situation where it's difficult to run. We can't run classes, so it's very difficult to run programs for all of these other kids. So the administration would like to have those delayed openings to facilitate the testing. I see you shaking your head, and I couldn't agree with you more. It's very, the whole concept is contrary to what we want to do and like to do.
The
But the-
delayed openings and the half-day exam schedules, we've talked about it before. I understand the reasoning. I still don't agree with it. I mean, this is one of those times where we always say, you may not agree with it, but it's best what's for district, so I'll vote for it, but it's one of those things where,
Well, it's a lesser of evil, I think.
well, and there's also
unfortunately.
classes, that do half days or maybe don't take exams.
Yeah.
That are like
Yeah.
special ed and this 18 to 21 program and things like that are also in, at-risk populations that
Mhm.
miss out on quite a bit of time
Yeah.
and stuff during these times.
Alex, did you have a
We hear
question? Alex? did you have a
I
question?
did, and it was less on the delayed opening, but more on is this the state testing that just this week or last week, they increased the, must-have proficiency?
Well, they didn't increase it. They just set the sort of passing score, if you will, at a 750 as opposed to a 725. So that's getting a lot of,
Yeah, you don't think that's an increase?
I'm sorry?
You don't think that's an increase? They raised it.
There was never really, there wasn't a before. So, no, with the 750, it was 750 for some tests in the past. It was 725 for some tests in the past. It depended on the test. So this test didn't exist before, so I don't think we could say they raised it. It just, they've set that score at 750, which is the equivalent of a 4 or a 5. On the NJSLA, as opposed to a 725, which has been the equivalent of a 3, 4, or 5. So it certainly is a higher standard.
Yeah.
But once again, the kids don't have to pass it as long as, let me
They do,
rephrase.
yeah, there's
Let me
some
rephrase.
kids that have
As
to.
long as they satisfy one of
The
the
other
other
requirements.
other requirements, which the overwhelming number of kids do. So there will be very few kids ultimately that will need probably this test to graduate, even though it certainly is one avenue by which kids graduate. So in other words, many of our kids will already have satisfied the graduation requirement prior to taking it based on their NJSLA 9 or 10 score. So
So
Hang on.
I'm sorry.
Natalie.
So are you saying that, I don't know if I understood that correctly. So if a lot of kids don't need this test, are we gonna have more kids home on a delayed opening for no reason than we are?
no, they still need to take it. They still need to take it, regardless of whether they've satisfied the graduation requirement in another way. They still need to sit for the test.
They just don't have to take it seriously or do well.
Yes, they
That
have
one
to take
grade.
it. That's not necessarily serious.
That one grade needs
let
to,
me-
11th grade.
Let me
just
uh,
11th grade needs to take it.
Well,
Irene, do you
that
have a
was going to be
question?
my concern
So
too,
3
if
grades
we
are-
could. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jenna.
That's the whole district.
This is unfortunately not atypical for when we've done, when it used to be the HESPA and then when Park came in. It's not,
But we
We
don't
haven't-
have to keep doing it.
I'm
right?
sorry, I
mean,
can't- I
To
can't.
Amy's point, we don't have to keep doing it. It doesn't make sense to me with all the school they've missed,
Mhm,
to have 3 grades come in late on 3-4 days.
Yeah.
I agree.
it really, it's a supervision issue. Because like I said, we have to have all the teachers engaged with proctoring the tests. You need at least 2 proctors in every room for these tests. And it creates, definitely creates,
But can a proctor be a clerical or a non-instructing staff member?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Like instructional.
Can't a proctor be a non-instructional
No.
person?
No. Has to be a teacher.
Part
Has
of
to
the
be a
problem
fully
is-
certified teacher.
Has
Can't,
has to be a certified teacher. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah.
no problem.
Irene, did you have another question about? it?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo, I know I've expressed my concerns about the disruption for that many days, along with the rest of this school year. It just is, it's a shame that we can't have just the junior teachers give all the juniors the
Well,
test.
Yeah, there's not
But
enough.
there
And-
aren't, as
And
you
then also you
said,
have mixed classes.
and there are mixed classes as well. And I just wonder if we can voice our protest to the state in some way, and maybe through Kelly's
We-
office, that not only is it a waste of their money
Yeah.
to provide these tests,
Yeah.
but for everybody to sit for it, even if they've already satisfied their graduation requirement, is absurd.
Yeah.
Just want
Part of the issue here with this, and this is what's come up over the years, is that it's really in state law that there be this one sort of 11th grade summative assessment. And this is what we ran into over the last couple of years with Park and then with NJSLA. So the legislature has been reluctant to change the law, and a lot of our federal funding through ESEA is tied to us satisfying our accountability requirements with the federal government. So if we don't do this testing, remember, we had to get waivers in the last couple of years not to do NJSLA 2 years ago. This year, we had to do Start Strong in lieu of NJSLA. So this testing is tied to our federal, to New Jersey's federal funding,
Okay,
which in turn affects our individual state funding.
absolutely.
So it's all tied together.
It's all tied.
Yeah.
Do other
Yeah, right.
districts do this?
Wait,
Take
wait,
off for
wait,
4
wait.
days? Do other districts do this and take off for 4 days? in the
I
past?
know there are other districts that have done and do delayed openings during testing. Yes, I mean, who right now, I don't know off the top of my head. Remember, we haven't done this in a couple of years, so, we're a little out of practice with who does what.
And we
But
can't use substitutes.
I would, yeah,
Only if they're fully certified, and we do not have enough substitutes who are fully certified.
Okay, Natalie?
So I'm hearing that we don't really have a choice this year on this, right? We don't want to cause chaos in the school.
Yeah.
Um,
and this is high school only, just,
But yeah, I understood. I would just be interested to see down the road if maybe there's some creative ideas.
Yeah.
You know, what other schools are doing. Can we do assemblies during this time? Can we do-
I think, and I think the answer to that is yes. And why I say it like that is because I think to do that for one class, and maybe, maybe it isn't all the classes, right? So, I think to do that for one class is possible.
Yeah.
When you start having to do that for 3 classes and where you put them, And also there's still this idea, I mean, hopefully things are looking better COVID wise, but there's another idea of trying not to, congregate
Of course.
whole
yeah.
classes necessarily together all the time. So I think that all plays into it. But yes, I think I can certainly communicate back that, let's try to look for in the future. The other thing that has been communicated to me is that when other things are going on like that around the school, because when we're testing all over the school. And so when these other things are happening around the school, it can be noisy, it can be, there's a lot of movement going on, and we want to try to create the most optimal testing environment for the kids. So that plays into it too. But we can certainly look for other ways, if not the entire, maybe only the seniors have to do this, and we bring in freshmen and sophomores or something like that. We can certainly look to do that moving
Okay, I
forward.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, so, I think if there's no other topics to discuss here on these points, we can get to the wellness
Yeah.
committee update. Are there any other topics to discuss?
No.
Everybody's okay with the overnight trip request?
Can I go?
Can you go?
Am I reading,
What?
am I reading that right? So they fundraised $23 per student and they are spending $150 per student? Is that, am I reading that right?
That's what it reads like, right?
Is there a reason that DECA only fundraised 23 per student this year due to like COVID or something like that? It prevented them from being able to fundraise more? Just curious.
Do you have anything you want to talk to that?
I'd have to find out, but I think if I'm not, I'm not sure, I'll double check on that, John, but I'm not sure if that's saying that through fundraising, they've raised 173 per student and now the balance is still 150.
The balance is 150. My daughter's going on the trip.
No, but we were talking about whether.
No, but I
173
believe that,
was
I'm not sure if they've only raised 23 or if they've raised 173. I see your point, and I'm not sure the answer, but I'll double check. and
Awesome.
have it for next week.
Just curious. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
Thanks, John.
Do we know how many children are going on
Is it-
the trip?
Just gonna ask that.
I don't know off the top of my head. I do know that it's usually a pretty good amount when it states.
56.
It says 56 on the thing.
Some of it's in administrative.
Okay,
Do we pay for students who are on free and reduced to attend this trip?
any trip like this, if there's a student that can't afford it, we work to pay for that student.
Is there just one parent chaperone going?
I'm gonna shout out everybody too.
One parent and multiple teachers.
Free teachers, yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Grace, I missed, did you?
She asked if.
I just didn't know if there was only one parent chaperone going or if others wanted
Oh,
to
okay.
go or
Yep.
how that works. Is it just one allowed or could other parents go if they wanted to?
Jim, can you want to answer that?
Yes, thank you. That's really done through the club and through the chaperones. They make that determination. So, I would say if, I don't know how they pick the chaperone. Mr. Greenspan, I know his children have been involved in DECA for a long time. So I don't know if that's just, something that's kind of carried over, but, we can certainly reach out to Mr. Cologne and ask, if he needs any more chaperones. For 56 people, 3 teachers and 1 parent is certainly more than enough in terms of chaperone to student ratio. But, we can ask him if he's in need of any more chaperones.
Okay.
Of course, a parent is always welcome to
Just show
book
up.
a room and show up and do what they want to do. So.
I just had a quick sidebar. Is there any way you could find out how many free and reduced, or if any, students are getting assistance on this out of the 56? Is that something that you
Right
could,
now, all kids are free and reduced. So that's,
anyone getting assistance in attending this?
we could find out.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
She wants to know if we could find out if any students of the 56 are getting
Is that,
support
is
from
that
us.
something we want? Is that a pain to find out?
I could work with the team to say.
Is that
I
a
will-
line?
Yeah, I
thing?
think we can just,
If
I
it's
think we can
difficult,
just
I will
check with
come
the
back to the
advisor.
board and let
Okay,
you know.
great.
But
Okay.
right now, like if I was to look at the classification in the system, everybody is free and reduced by the state. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so let me see.
Yeah,
if,
we can
Between Kelly and I,
find
if we
out.
could put
We can
something
find out
together.
if anybody's.
Yeah, we could find that out.
Like to know what our outreach is. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go to a wellness update. So I think Ms. McGovern
I wasn't
and
able
Ms.
to attend. so
and
Miss-
Grace Ann, you were at that meeting. Did you want to give a?
I was there, yes. So, we met with all the building counselors. They explained that they're doing the Great Kindness Challenge, which ran from January 24th through 28th. They did a fabulous job, doing different things. And there's a lot of different things that they did. Wayside did kindness is so much fun theme. Intermediate did kindness like sunshine. And there are different themes throughout the building. Most noteworthy, every counselor at every school is feeling a little overwhelmed with kids who need counseling services, and they don't really have the resources to refer to accommodate their needs. Although Human Services can be referred to as a referral source, they have no bilingual counselors on staff. That may have changed over the past 2 weeks, but at the time of the meeting, they didn't. And they also are not able to see youth from kindergarten through 3rd grade. Right now, because of the high risk, it would be very beneficial to have a mental health supervisor that could kind of assist and help get referrals and resources and possibly some clinical supervision for the staff. And that also could maybe attend the wellness committee. Now that, let's see. Just some of the highlights: kids are experiencing anxiety and depression. Children's mobile response number for Perform Care was given. And the ESS training on the Intro to Nurtured Heart approach was presented actually last week. About 18 people attended this presentation, and it was recorded. And it was discussed if staff had any SEL activities that needed funding, they could reach out to their supervisor. And that's pretty much our whole meeting. It was a good meeting. The next meeting is March 3rd at 9:30.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grace Ann. Jim, did you want to add anything to that or no?
I had a question
Sure.
for Grace Ann or anybody on the committee. So the list of resources at the end of your report, was that meant for teachers, parents, or both?
Well, I believe this report only goes out to the teachers and the staff because this is an administrative report.
Okay,
I'm sure if there was a parent that needed resources, if they called their school counselor, they probably would be able to give them those resources now.
well, thank you. But the reason I ask that is because looking at the resources, so there's a morning meditation at 7:30 a.m. I'm not sure how many teachers could do that. A mindfulness Zoom at 11:15 a.m. on a Wednesday, kind of in the middle of the school day, and a hope and healing forum the 4th Tuesday at 10 a.m. It just doesn't seem like those resources are very workable for
Right.
the teachers.
Well, I did actually ask if we could put those on our district website. I don't know if that happened, but I did ask.
Jim.
Yeah, these are resources for the members of the committee to push out to whomever they feel that, individual counselors or individual, our mental health professionals, to push those out to parents, kids, a whole variety.
So it does
So
go
it's
out
for
to,
the resources it's basically for their toolkit, for all of the people on the committee, for their toolkit to push out as they see fit within their schools, to their kids, the SAC counselors, whatever.
to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily intended for, we don't have a, drop it and do mindfulness at
Right.
11:15 every day even though that's probably not a
That
bad
probably
idea.
would not be a bad
You know,
idea.
It's for them to use to either for themselves within the school or beyond.
John's gonna go next.
Just in response to the report from our equity coach, I don't even know if she's the individual who is responsible for this, but I would assume that she is. So please correct me if I'm mistaken. Is she working to assist in response to our scores in the exam that we were presented last week, specifically with the groups that are underscoring across the district? And what does that support look like is more my question.
Yeah, so yes, I mean, that's part of her role, absolutely, is to work with teachers to try to make determinations as to why we have disparities based on different racial and ethnic groups or special ed or economically disadvantaged, whatever it may be. And work to examine that with individual teachers and be able to share best practices and ideas to try to close those gaps. And so, yes, that's absolutely part of what she's doing.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, John. Ms. Montgomery,
I'm actually good.
you good?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? You on the wellness side? Wellness committee update? No? Thank you, Grace Ann. Appreciate it. Let me see. We're going to move to personnel. Ms.
No.
Parlamas.
Oh, no.
Sure.
Ms. Parlamas. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to move items 10.1 through 10.4. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Truba?
Ms. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Gilman,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Palamas.
Yes.
Ms. Delarico,
Yes.
Tortorella,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you, Ms. Parlamas. Grace Ann, would you do policy?
Sure. So the Board of Education Administration will discuss, wrong part. Board of Education Administration will discuss the second reading of revised or new policy regulations as follows. There's a lot of different policies there. Do you want me to go through all of them, or is that?
No. I think you can just read 11.2.
11.2, presentation of policies and regulations, first reading. Board of Education Administration will discuss the first reading of revised or new policies, regulations as follows. And 11.3, the Board of Education Administration will discuss policy 1648.11, the road forward, COVID-19 health and safety.
So I guess if we just take 11.1 and 11.2, does anybody have any items on 11.1 that they want to discuss? Ms. Gelman?
11.1, policy 3221. Do we have a district advisory evaluation committee?
The DIAC, otherwise affectionately known as DIAC, was a requirement back from 2010 that was eliminated as a requirement. We use our instructional council to
That's
serve in that capacity.
Great. Yeah, I saw that it was optional. I just wondered if we had it.
We use
So
instructional council.
we do. Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions, Ms. Gelman? on any of
No.
these? No? I think, did I see Alex, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think it's minor. 8420.1, the fire and fire drills regulation. I skimmed it really quickly earlier, so I hope I'm not missing it as well. There is that new law that states after a drill, we have to tell parents whether it's
Yes.
fire or whatever.
Yes, and
So-
we've instructed,
But hold on,
I'm
A,
sorry.
is it in this regulation? Because I didn't think it was. And then that was going to lead to, where do we stand with that? With the new law?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not in this regulation. My guess is sometime this year, there will be a new policy and regulation that will come out that will reflect that law. It often takes a little bit of time for policy just to come out after the law. This is still a little backed up from previous. And I'm sorry, repeat question number 2.
And then where do we stand?
Oh, yeah. So I've spoken to all of the principals. They will be, and it's my understanding, I think a number of them sent out a little message that said they're going to be letting people know. I think they told me they've done that.
Yep.
To let people know that now all of a sudden, when we have a drill, you're going to get a little message saying we had a drill. So yes, that has to happen before the end of, by the end of the school day. So when when there's a fire drill, when there's any kind of drill, parents will get notified that a drill took place. The only thing I'm not sure that it requires, and I'm waiting, I actually sent an email and have gotten an answer about this. I don't know that it's required for fire drills. I know it's required for like, lockdowns and shelters in place and active shooters and those kinds of things. But I didn't find any language. It spoke of security drills. I didn't find any language that specifically mentioned fire drills, but it certainly, but I basically said was, so just tell everybody we had a fire drill. It's not a big deal. So my guess is sometime this week, there's going to be a fire drill because it's really nice out for the rest of this week. Yeah.
On 11.2 for that first reading, does anybody have any, because it is the first reading, obviously there's gonna be a second reading. So if you haven't gotten to read it all, don't worry, there's more time to do this next time as well. So Irene looks relieved. Yes.
The regulation 5751 sexual harassment.
Yep.
It appeared to be like all new. It was all.
Yeah, if we remember, we revised that policy a couple weeks back,
Yeah.
and now this is just the regulation.
So that was just the
A
regulation.
lot of
to
it was
go with.
changed, yeah, to reflect on some of the new, rules that went into
Wording,
effect.
procedures.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Thank you.
Grace Ann, did you have any comments you wanted to make about 11.2 at all?
For 5200, I'm glad that it's been updated and that it's a little bit clearer for parents regarding attendance and the attendance probation. So I am actually happy about that. That's about the only comment I have.
Okay. Great. So let's move on to 11.3. And Jim, if you don't mind, if you kind of want to start how you want us to start this discussion, that would probably be best. Just as I was talking about before, the discussion is just not about whether to have mandated masks or have masks being optional. There's other things that need to be considered. So I'd like for Jim to talk for a little bit, and then I wouldn't mind if we went around the room, if anybody had a comment or something that was most on their mind, if they wanted to say something about this, okay? Whatever trepidation you have on either side or whatever you're most concerned about, if you could just feel like saying, and by the way, if you want to pass, it's cool passing, right? It's not, no harm, no foul, okay? So Jim, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, the $100 million question is, what are we going to do? We have said from the very beginning all along as it relates to mask wearing and if you look at our safety plans, it's all very consistent. And in this policy, it really speaks to following the regulations, following the guidelines. For all of last school year, for the majority of this school year, there was executive order that required masks and mandated it. So that was easy. Last summer, if you recall, it was not a mandate. Masks were not mandated. The language, if I'm not mistaken, was highly encouraged. So that's the language we followed. We did not mandate masks for students last school year last summer. And then, of course, they were mandated again starting August 11th and then forward. So it has certainly always been our position that we follow the guidance. It sounds like the guidance is going to be, once we officially receive it, that it's no longer going to be mandated. Will that guidance be encouraged, recommended, whatever it may be? But I think, I've discussed this with the administration, and, we are of the mind that we should follow that guidance based on what, the Department of Health is going to tell us. So, and then that also, as Jeff said, that speaks to where we are with quarantine and really moving to a place that, unless we're going to be in a place where mask wearing and quarantine and these things are just going to be the norm, which I would all hope we would think they are not going to be, then we need to learn to be able to navigate the world of COVID in as normal an environment as possible. So administratively, that's, I think, where we are. But, ultimately, obviously, the Board of Education's feelings on this are this isn't, it's in policy, right? So what you guys, right now, our policy speaks to executive order. So if the executive order ends and the board does not want to change anything, then we can let that end and it's fine. But if the board wishes to maintain the mask mandate, which once again, I think administratively, we're recommending to follow the guidance, whatever that guidance is, once it comes out, then we would have to adjust policy to keep the mask mandate in place.
Okay, so I just want to, I just want to start with a couple of my own things on this. So one thing that I think we need to figure out how to take in consideration is that some families and students will want to wear masks. And one of the things that, thinking forward and thinking ahead is, we just want to make sure that those people who do wear masks feel comfortable, that if they feel like they have pre-existing conditions which make them vulnerable to something, really awful that happens to them should they get COVID, we want to make sure that they're protected. We want to make sure that they're also, that there's, not a us versus them, the people who wear the mask versus people who don't wear the mask kind of two going on. So I want to make sure that we think through that and protect those people who feel very vulnerable in those situations. Okay. So that's one area that I think is kind of important. I also think that we want to make sure that we are being sober with the idea that should there be a spike of some kind, that we don't put ourselves locked into something else, right? So right now, we're in, I think, the orange state. If we move down to the yellow state, and it was to go by March 7th, and it was at some point for some reason to climb to the orange state or to the red state, I want to make sure that we had the right to say, okay, we gotta stop the presses and kind of go back to, having a mask mandate. So first of all, I just want to say to people who are listening, we're not saying what is the policy. We're saying we're trying to get into the what ifs a little bit here. We're making sure we're getting into the what ifs, because I don't know what happens after the Super Bowl. I don't know what happens after people go away and it gets a little, people go to more parties and there's some spike. I'm not 100% sure what
I
happens.
think there's going to be a lot of Rams, disappointed Rams fans, but
But we want to make sure that there's some other way to make us turn on a dime in case that kind of occurs. Okay, so those are my two main things right now, is to protect the people who feel most vulnerable and their families, so they don't have mental anguish, as well as put themselves in physically bad positions. And also not to make sure that there's an us versus them kind of thing that goes on, make sure we're having the right precautions for that, and then having some kind of method so that there's in a very objective way for us to say that things are not in the place we want to be, and we're going to go back and declare our own revision to a policy. So those are my thoughts. Would anybody voluntarily like to share some of their own thoughts around this topic? John?
I think first, one very important thing that I think we all need to realize, and I say this openly because it's something that is giving me not angst, but pause, which is that both, with receiving all of the emails that we've received, both groups of parents genuinely believe that they are right. And both groups of parents are citing studies that support their argument. And so I ask that everyone who is asking the administration and the board to lean one way, to understand that both parties genuinely believe that they are the one who is correct. And in situations like this, it is often something that is most likely in the middle, is genuinely my opinion. Now that I've said that, I would like to be very clear to the administration that I ask that at all situations, we do our best to protect a parent's right to choose what we do with their children, as long as it does not impact the safety of said children. And so I feel very adamantly about that. I believe that we are receiving a lot of information from parents right now that are asking for that. However, as Jeff said, the president said, I do think that it is extremely important that we understand that this is a very dynamic situation and that it could change again at the drop of a dime. And so we are making the best decisions that we can with the information that we have available at the moment.
Okay, thank you, John. Natalie?
Thank you, Mr. Weinstein. Just a couple of thoughts. So first, I think we have to be cognizant of what we would do in the absence of guidance. So we've been super consistent about that. We've been really consistent with the message and the practice of following the guidance. And I think we will get to a point where there just won't be guidance anymore. Starting to see that in my industry, and we're seeing it in other industries. So I just want to make sure that we may not always be able to say we're doing what is suggested that we do. So just to kind of keep that in mind. I appreciate Jeff and John, what you guys said. I agree about there being, multiple sides to this issue. Whether I personally agree with multiple sides or not, that is the feeling of the public. And to the us versus them, that's something that does weigh on me because while most parents were respectful in their emails to us, there were some that were not. There were some that were a bit threatening and really took a tone that they did not need to take. We are here as volunteers. We are here to help and do good for the community. So there just really wasn't a need. And I personally don't appreciate the threatening tone of some of the emails that we got. That said, we have to rise above that and we have to be better than that. And we have to make sure that we set the policy and we set the tone so that our children and our students do not experience the us versus them. And so our teachers do not experience us versus them. I don't want to have a teacher feeling like they have to be embarrassed or ashamed because they're going to work because they want to wear a mask and have people ridicule them or what have you. So I'll just leave that there. And that said, I would agree that I think we're really moving in the direction of we need more parent choice around this issue.
Okay. I think Irene, I think you were next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Weinstein. I agree with much of what you said, and I just resented being asked where I stand, because that is so divisive just in the wording alone. I stand with science, I stand with mandates, I stand with the guidance that we receive. Again, our responsibility is to over 3,000 students and 500 plus staff members. And because we get a few emails that are angry and threatening or rude in their tone, we're expected to suddenly vote one way or the other. I never, ever want it to become us versus them. And I know that this is a very divisive issue, but again, our job is to protect all. So when the mandate goes away, March 7th, I hope that we can continue to have discussions about what is best for everyone. And that if there are people still very vulnerable to COVID, because what hasn't been mentioned is that COVID is still here and it hasn't gone away. And if it's okay with everybody that 900,000 people have died from this disease, it's not okay with me. So it's still with us. And as Dr. Stefankowitz said, we may have to learn to live with it going forward. So masks are still going to be part of our everyday existence. And again, if we spike, if we go into the red and have to revert back to wearing masks, it's something that we need to do. So again, we all serve here for the entire community, and we serve because we are interested in protecting everybody and doing what's best for everybody involved. So I hope that we can continue this discussion in the next few meetings and perhaps get some more guidance from the Department of Health, and that will help us to move forward.
Yep, great. Thank you, Irene.
Well,
Grace Ann, did you want to say something?
Just briefly, I mean, I do agree with all of what fellow board members are saying. But I do want to say, I do appreciate the viewpoints of all the parents and the passion and the feelings behind them and all the emails that we had gotten. Our main goal of everyone here is the safety of our children. And, I just hope that we have the policies in place of how we're going to protect the most vulnerable. And, I look forward to the open discussion of where we're going to go with this once the mandate is lifted. And also, if the board members are going to be the ones actually deciding, or if it's going to be, a recommendation based on some other agency or organization, I would just like more information about all of this. And I do appreciate everyone's hard work. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. Alex, I think you had your hand up. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything prepared, so I hope I make sense. I don't think I've been too shy in my approval of a mask mandate. And I'm not so certain that I want that to exist forever. But I do believe in the science behind wearing masks. However, if by March 7th, I'm kind of leaning toward, if we are in a yellow state of affairs, I would be somewhat comfortable if we kept masks only, for example, for kids under the 5, kids who are not in the vaccination, who are not eligible for the vaccine. We have a lot of preschool kids in our district, and I think we owe it to those families to protect the 3, 4, and 5-year-olds at a minimum if we decide to do away with masks. And I also, my last comment is, I just really hope we have something in place that says, like what you were saying, Jeff, if we go into red, we do this. If we go into orange, we do this. And not decided after March 7th. And not decided, like, we have to wait for the health department to tell us what to do. But I think it shouldn't be just masks. It should be plexiglass. If we're in red, we should have our plexiglass up, in my opinion. So that's it for me.
Okay, great. Anybody else like to make a comment? No?
I don't mind making a comment.
You can, it's not, there's nothing that says you
Yeah,
have to.
I agree with what Dr. Stefankwitz says, and I certainly agree with what you said. And actually, I agree with pretty much what everybody here has said. I do believe in following the executive order. It is what we have done. And if the executive order at this time, or March 7th, says that, the mask mandate can be lifted, I feel that our school should follow it. However, I agree with Alex that we should have something in place if, in fact, the case number started to rise again, and it shouldn't be a last minute thing. It's something we should have in place. And I do feel that we should protect those that want to continue wearing a mask. That is their option, and they should be able to do that without any comment from anyone. So
Yep.
that's
Yep.
pretty much my thoughts.
Great. Anybody else?
The only
Ms.
thing-
Montgomery?
The only thing I wanted to say was, when we're talking about, the red and yellow and all those colors and everything, in some ways, I feel like we've been in orange and we haven't necessarily done exactly what the guidance has said in orange at times and stuff. And I feel like I would rather, when we do those things, that personally, I would rather the policy, if it's a policy or whatever, that it's for what Ocean Township as a town is, and not necessarily what Monmouth County. I feel like sometimes it's not
Good point.
really reflected in the county. So if the county's orange, but Ocean is really only in yellow or green, then I don't know that we need to be so, stringent. I know, it's been opposite. I'm just saying, I think that it's
hard
worth
Yeah,
looking
just
a little bit at
let me read so.
what's happening with our numbers that we know at the school, if in fact we have,
Yeah.
that's just it.
Yeah, just to that point, we're probably all gonna know what not good looks like, and we're probably all gonna start feeling what good looks like, right? So that if we see a large, a large outbreak in something, we'll probably, we're gonna have to throw the flag up quickly and say, okay, what do we do, right? So I think you're right. I think it's common sense as well as data.
The last thing I just want to say is that I feel like at the end of last year, when we went back after spring break to 5 days, or, when we were doing things like that, it was so that we ended the year strong to try and have things back to normal as much as we could for September. And I feel like if the numbers are low, being able to end the year strong and get back to the normal for the end of the year and for the beginning of next year, I think that was a very good way to open September, was that we ended on a positive note. Not a positive, not that positive.
Not a COVID positive.
Not a
note,
COVID
not a
positive
COVID
note, but a positive note as a district.
Shawanda, would you like to say anything, or are you good?
Sure, I'll review all information. I'll make an informed decision. I'll cast my vote. And I hope that we have clear policies in place.
Great. Okay,
Can I
good.
just- Can I just mention one thing?
Sure, go ahead.
So just, it's funny, I know, we were talking about the yellows and the oranges and the reds. There was a time when orange, it's all relative, right? There was a time when orange was terrible and we never dreamed we'd get to red, and yellow was great. Now, red was commonplace for a while and 35,000 cases a day was commonplace. And now we look at orange and go, yay, orange. So, right, I mean, in some ways you look at it and say, well, if we ever got back to the red, maybe that's that place where we do something. But, do we ever get to a place where red is good and there's another color beyond red, Let's hope not. The other thing I just wanted to mention was I have incredible faith in our students and our staff in terms of protecting if the choice is the way we go. I have great faith in our students and staff that no individual who walks into our schools is going to be made to feel badly for whatever choice they make. I have great faith in our students and staff in that regard.
I'd like to have that faith, but little kids have already been like, oh, do you have Rona? Oh, you didn't get the vaccine yet, or you did get the vaccine yet? So I would hope
I
you're.
think we have to, first of all, I think
Kids will be kids.
you're right on point to that. And I think, during these times, we're hoping that everybody kind of rises to the occasion and is accepting of people, but we just want to make sure that we're kind of really reinforcing that as a group. So just as far as timing goes, so I think next meeting, we're probably going to want to have a discussion to really frame up what a policy would look like. Okay, I think that's going to be in our next discussion. Then we have 2 weeks of a break. And in between the 2 weeks, we'll be able to maybe formulate that policy and figure out how to get people's input. And then we have our meeting before the 7th. And at that point, we should be ready to say to ourselves that what the policy is going to be, assuming that the governor does not exercise any other right on the 7th or after. Okay, so I think that's the cadence that we're going to go through. It's going to be next meeting, we'll formulate a policy that we all kind of can talk to, what the bullets are that we want to have. I'll work with Jim this week to maybe start that discussion so we can frame something up here for us. And then we'll have something that we can talk to, discuss, tighten up, create, add to on the 15th. Let it sit for a week or two, have some comments in between that go to myself and Jim and Tina. And then we'll have the final touches of that for the 2 weeks after that. Okay? Does that sound like an okay plan? Great.
So
Okay.
Jeff, we're looking to be able to vote on the policy at the next regular meeting, not the 15th.
It'll have to be the first.
It'll be the first.
If you want to do it on
Right,
the
we're gonna-
first.
we're gonna be
Okay, that's
planning
what
on
I'm
the
asking.
first, Right,
We would have to.
right, we would tighten up anything in that in between, maybe doing a little bit more tightening up in the work session of that meeting, and then have it on, and then
Okay.
discuss it on the first. Okay. Yes.
Do you anticipate getting any further guidance from Department of Health before that?
I would really
Yeah.
hope so.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
But we cannot guarantee that, but I would really hope so.
Yeah, I would hope in the
It would
next
be
couple of
helpful.
days.
I mean, at the very
Maybe
least, I will have
December
discussion with
guidance.
the regional health commission, as we
Yes.
always do, but
County.
I would really hope, the governor alluded to it, and I certainly would hope that they're gonna go in that direction.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for the good discussion on this. And, just also, we did get a lot of very thoughtful emails and we got a lot of emotional emails and some people did take it over the top. And I'm hoping that those people who are listening here realize that we have to keep these kind of emotions in check because we're all trying to do the right thing. Okay. So everybody who did send us their thoughts and their emails and at some level, discuss their individual situations. I do appreciate you sharing all that with us. We're going to now move on to public relations, and I don't know if Alex, we put this under public relations because it's a public relations topic. So I'm going to hand it over to
So
you.
wait, can we get this clear? for a second, Jeff? I'm not sure if I really understood what you were saying.
I
So,
don't know if Alex was surprised it was on her.
No, I kind of forgot that I was the chair for a second and then I
Okay.
have to
Can you
read
read that?
something. Hold on, let me pull it up. This is just a discussion though, right?
Yes.
So, okay, the Board of Education and Administration will discuss the possibility of establishing a community advisory committee.
Great. Can I talk to this for a second? Since I was the chair of the policy committee. So we went through our policies last time. We saw that there was an opportunity in our general policies to start a community advisory committee. And so we decided that we were going to talk about this and discuss whether it made sense for us to have a customer advisor, a community advisory committee, or if it didn't make sense. So there's a couple of things I just want to kind of talk to. Dr. Frank has talked about the idea that it may be part of a discussion that we want to have around our strategic planning, right? That was something that was brought up. That may or may not be the case. I'm just kind of putting it out there that it may be part of it. I do want to talk to for a second my own thoughts about this community advisory committee, and I think I've talked to a number of you about this. Is that to me the community advisory committee is more about getting ourselves much more integrated into the community and figuring out a way that different groups in our community who don't necessarily have a consistent voice with us can have that voice, right? Such as senior citizens, could be certain business organizations. I know the people in real estate have a vested interest in what we're doing. Could be health professionals that we want to have. It could be just regular business people, whatever that is, right? The thing that I was interested in this, what kind of piqued my thought here, was that I wanted more the community advisory committee to be not necessarily about having parents of the school district involved, but having people who we don't reach, who don't have necessarily that access to us, that people we want to figure out how to get engaged with us, that this could be a vehicle to be able to do that. Our parents have the ability to come to board meetings, they have PTAs, they're able to have access to principals, superintendents. And so I don't want to necessarily have another layer of a parent community that supersedes those or is in conjunction with those and those kind of things. Even the business, the business group here has their own business advisory group too. So we just want to be careful that we're not, when we're drawing the Venn diagram of what this community advisory committee looks like, it's not overlaying exactly on what other committees and organizations is doing. So I would be I'd be in favor of us talking through it as how it relates to having, a group of, 7 to 10 individuals who might represent a cross-section of our community that we really want to make sure starts getting involved with us more. And that was my opening remarks. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to?
I do.
Who's that? Is that Graceanne?
Graceanne.
Sure, go ahead, Graceanne.
Wonderful. I mean, I love this idea. Back in 2019, the New Jersey School Board Association put out the Foundation of Hope, which was mental health and about bringing communities together. And I don't know if anybody remembers, but back in 2020, when I first got onto the board, I had discussed a very similar type of group. that the New Jersey School Board Association had discussed in this Foundations of Hope. And I had people that actually wanted to be part of this, a local business person, someone from the council, the police, and also a person of faith. So if we are going to do this, I do have those people's names that I can forward to you. Do you know when this might happen?
Well, first, we're just trying to discuss, right now, we're just trying to discuss whether we all want to have this type of committee, if we think that it makes sense for us to do. If we wanted to see how this committee would make sense more in our strategic planning process, or if we feel like just having this committee right now and just launching this ourselves is something we'd want to do. John?
I just would like to have more color on what the difference is between the impact of this committee and then what happens with our PTAs. Just as a new member, that's something I don't understand in
Okay.
terms of advising us on what's going on from the parents and members in the community. It's just to include individuals who may not have children in the school district. Is that the intent?
No, I think it's more the intent to have people more that represent different groups that we want to make sure we're reaching out to that can have a forum with us. Yeah.
So my question was similar, if you don't mind if I
No, go ahead.
speak
No.
too, because I guess I don't understand either what, and I've told you this, I don't understand what would be discussed in that committee that wouldn't, like, anybody can come to a board meeting, not just a parent. And like, what do you guys, those of you that are. in
Well,
favor of this-
my-
Let me finish,
yeah.
let me finish. What do you see as something that, like, I don't know, real estate people or whomever, or business, like, what, would they be advising the district? I'm not clear on what the relationship would be there. And I don't want to see something that's just gonna be more work for the district.
Go? Okay, I'm not exactly sure how it morphs, okay? I do know that we are taxpayer operated, right? And I know that we don't really get, people from these different groups to want to sit at these board meetings. Nor do I think that it gives them the opportunity to say maybe what their constituents would want, right? So I'm not sure if senior citizen groups would like to have a better understanding how they might be able to support us, understanding exactly what we're trying to become as a district. So part of it is understanding giving them an idea of what we're all about, and then giving them the opportunity to figure out what they might want to do to participate in what we're doing. And I'm not sure how far that goes. I'm not sure exactly where that leads. I'm pretty confident, though, that if we don't take a different step, we're not going to really get any of these other groups to be talking with us, and we're going to be kind of at a status quo. So I'm not sure where it goes. And
Can I say
And-
I
one?
guess I don't know that we need, like, I don't.
you might you might be right.
Okay.
You might be right. Before you go, Gracie, and other people will have their hand up.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I'm going to go with Shawanda's.
So just two questions. How are we selecting the committee? Who is leading the committee?
I thought that I would lead the committee. And I'm not sure of the first part, which how we would determine who would be on it. We can discuss that and determine how we would.
Like, would there be an application? Would there be just a referral, a nomination, an acceptance?
Yeah, we could discuss what that is. I haven't thought about that.
I mean, it's something new. Try it. If it doesn't work out, abolish it. That would be hard to do.
Alex? What?
I'll just speak quickly. So the Township of Howell does this, and they even have an application online. And you have to submit like why you want to be on it. And so I'm going to send you the link, and if Shawana wants it too. I've been on the PTA for a number of years, and now being on the board, I personally don't think we have as much interaction with the PTA members who are like so crucial to the success of our schools, but we don't hear from them as much as we probably would love to. They're all super busy. So I just think this is another extra way to get the pulse of the community, to get their ear. They can get our ear. And I do think some people don't like coming to these meetings, whether it's in person or online, because it just seems a little more formal. It's like a process, it's government or whatever. So I feel like if it was like every fifth Wednesday of like every 4 months, here, just board members, I think that we would attract a different set of folks who might be willing to open up and tell us what's on their mind.
Okay, I'll get to you in a second, Grace Ann. Amy?
The one thing I was just gonna say, when you, it jogged my memory, when you were talking about, reaching out to like the senior citizen community and stuff. When we were going through the referendum process, these were some of the things we were trying to do just to include people that weren't gonna see it, right? And we had actually reached out, Marwin helped us a lot, and we reached out to all the different senior citizen communities to come, and we had a meeting at the high school one week, and we gave them a tour of everything, and they were able to talk to Dr. Spankwitz about some of the questions or concerns that they had at that time. And I don't know if that's different than what we're thinking, but kind of to Alex's point, or I don't know that we need, sometimes the board, we don't need a session. When Dr. Spankwitz first came, he tried to do superintendent nights, right? And he would go to different schools all the time, and he'd be like, come meet me, and one person or nobody would show up, so they stopped. But and sometimes you have to be careful if they come in and tell us things that are day-to-day, those types of conversations. But maybe it starts when we're trying to figure out, as Shawanda said, like, who would we want to be on this? Maybe we start with reach out sessions to different groups in town, right? Maybe we say, okay, and kind of introduce, and then maybe from there, we get some people from those committee, it would be a building process, but maybe, you reach out to the senior citizen community, then maybe as Grace Ann said, like a person of faith, maybe we reach out to somebody, maybe we reach out to some of the temples in town, and we I don't know, just different places, and then kind of go from there and kind of pick somebody from those type, like from each group that we're thinking about that.
Okay,
And that's just.
okay. Grace Ann?
Thank you. So from my understanding because I went to the New Jersey School Board, the meeting, it was more of to like collaborate community resources. The example they gave was like having small businesses teaching and mentoring high school kids and teaching them the skills of what they do at the business. In other areas as well, maybe volunteering at a local nursing home or something like that. It's more to like include everyone in the community in the process of the collaborative resources. And I would love to co-facilitate if just putting that out there. Thank you.
Sure. John, I saw your hand was up.
Yeah, I just, I definitely will support something like this if I see the value in it. But at this point, it seems as though we can't really and I know that this is kind of like the chicken and the egg type thing, right? We can't describe what the value of this will be until it's created. And so I see that, but I think I need more concrete terms before I can support something like this. So I don't know what we can do or what the timeline is for desiring something like this, but I just would like to kind of, because even as we're discussing right now, it seems as though all of us kind of have a different idea of what this is going to be. And I'd like to kind of have a better idea of what this will be, what the goal of this will be. Because if it's going to be using time and resources of the district, I want to make sure that there's something good that's going to come out of it that's a value to the district.
Okay. Denise, did you have anything you want to say?
I didn't, I agree with John. It's like he took the thoughts right out of my head. I don't think we have a goal set for this committee. And I think if we have that goal in place, maybe then we can begin to figure out how to make it work. Because I know that I am involved in a committee that, not through the board, but doesn't really have a set goal. And, we meet and we just really just stare at each other. We really don't have a purpose to be there. And I would hate for this to start out strong
Yeah.
and then just kind of like die out.
Yeah, I guess what I'm envisioning is that there'd be a cross-section of individuals, right, representing different types of fractions inside our community. And we would get down the process of, at first, just kind of informing these people about what we're all about as a district, what's kind of important to us, what we're kind of trying to do, how we're thinking about our student population, what we think our challenges are, trying to get them involved and attach themselves to what our challenges are. And really kind of awaken them to some extent. Because right now we look like a cost item on somebody's property tax bill, right? We look like a cost, right? And so I think we want to enlighten them about what we're about, what we're trying to do, how we're really motivated to continue to make this a great place, a great school system for this community. And then at that same time, answer questions that they have, ask them how they want to be involved, and that would start bridging that discussion. So John, I don't think it gets more complicated than that. I think the first thing we have to do is to attach people to what our challenges are and see what it evolves from that. And of course, we're going to have different, I would expect that I would come up with, how we were doing this, come up with different takeaways that we'd like people to do that are part of this. And we would come up with some specific, easy takeaways that I would do in conjunction with Jim, assuming Jim feels like this also makes sense and he feels like he'd want to be part of that, right? So that's the framework. I could obviously write this up, but I'm not saying that this is. I mean, I think it makes sense because we seem to go through these times in our, at least for me being on the board for the last 3 years, we go through these times where we wish we were talking to other people and understanding what the rest of the community was like and that kind of thing. So, and I just think we want to get into a better awareness process as a board. That's my, I mean, as far as people coming to our board meetings, we basically get the same group of people that come to our board meetings, right? It doesn't, we don't really have an expansive mode to what we're doing here, right? So it may come up if we're doing a referendum and we may get a bunch of other people coming up. But at that point, if we're doing a referendum and a bunch of people are coming up, it's already too late. We haven't really helped promote what we're all about and why we're doing these things. And we don't have any people doing any blocking for us, right? We're kind of now we're kind of on the defensive when it comes to those situations. So we're just trying to figure out how we get better collaboration. That's all.
So on the surface, and I've shared this with you, I support trying something new. And not that I want like a 20-page strategic plan, but basically the who, what, when, where, why, how, what are the objectives? What's the goal for that objective? Let's put it in writing, see what it looks like fleshed out. And if we can't flesh it out in writing, then we probably can't go forward. So and I don't know who's going to do it, but I think Grace Ann said, I don't know if that's the part she wants to help with but let's put it in writing. Like, where are these senior citizens coming from? Where are the business people coming from? How are you reaching out to them? Are you going to a bank? Why this bank over that bank? Like, let's now put it in writing, show it to us, and we'll make an informed decision.
Okay, Jim, did you have anything you wanted to say about this?
No, I think, I think you and I have talked about it. I am in favor of kind of seeing how this flushes out through the information we get through our strategic plan, and sort of the goals and that come out of that. And I think we could tailor, usually what comes out of strategic plan are facility goals, financial goals, instructional goals, community goals. So I think that can help drive some of the questions being asked here, like who's on it, what are the goals of the committee? I think the strategic plan is what helps to guide this. So that's what I would suggest as we go to that direction.
Okay, so so if it's okay right now, I'm gonna kind of just table the discussion. I think I'm gonna take it upon myself to start writing up some of these things, okay? And at some point over the next 1 or 2 meetings, I'll have something to possibly share, okay? And with some for us to discuss. Is that okay, everybody?
Yes.
Great, okay, super. Okay, thanks, Jim. Okay, we're gonna go to any old business anybody would like to discuss at this time. I think Alex had was your hand up from the other section or was your hand up from this new section?
For this section, for Ed.
Thanks.
Only because we, understandably cut our meeting a little short and rapid last week. I do have a couple of questions here. In the instructional council report from last week, it mentioned, there's a rumor that we're going from, what is it, Power School to Genesis, and then, because we didn't really get the chance to talk about it before things kind of went a different direction at the last meeting. Irene, I believe, was in the middle of reading it, and then we kind of just ended our meeting. So it says we're going from Power School to Genesis. Is that a rumor? And it was pretty blunt in the instructional write-up saying, yep, the district is going to Genesis. So this is news to me. So I didn't know we had made a decision. Did we buy anything? I thought we were gonna look at Genesis, but apparently all the schools have been told already that we're going to Genesis, so.
Mr. President, as the chair of the technology committee, I'm happy to field this question because I was recently briefed on it.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Oh, that's good that somebody.
recently,
Okay.
like 2 days ago. So, and Natalie supports me on this committee. And so we are very excited about technology. I am under the impression that Genesis was already previously approved. However, that may not be correct. So I can go back and get that information, but this is already set to be implemented. And that was already something that was discussed. So I don't know that it was up for discussion anymore. That's what I have been told, I believe. And I think Kelly can answer the question too, because she's on the line.
Yeah, well, I can also, so, because I was the technology chairperson last time, right? So I think in general, they've been, Kelly's team has been researching different systems, one of which was Genesis. And first of all, it is an administrative decision on what kind of tools they want to have and what the recommendations are, right? I think the bigger part to this was, how does it fit into the budget? And is it something that we find that we have a spike in the budget because we have to do conversion or professional services or whatever it is? So I think that's generally the scope that administratively, I think that they're coming with a recommendation. I'm not sure, I'm assuming a recommendation based on what you're saying is that's what they're recommending.
Well, it doesn't say recommend, it says it's coming.
Yeah.
That's not a recommendation.
Yeah, sure.
We bought it.
Yeah, I mean, we've basically made the administrative decision that that's the direction we're moving. So it's not, a student information system is not something that in and of itself you put in front of the board and say, I approve Power School or I approve Genesis. It's in the budget. There will be some budgetary, there will be some first year costs that will be more than, ultimately it will be, and that will come out and be flushed out through the budget process, and ultimately the board votes on the budget. So you're not, you vote to fund it, but it's not typical that you vote for what student information system we're using. That's kind of how it works.
I thought we were discussing it at one point and somebody was gonna say, could somebody find out more about Genesis and tell us? So.
I mean, this process has been going on for a little while, so.
It is the desire.
But just Alex's point, Alex is kind of correct. We brought it up in one of our meetings. And
Somebody
we
was
did
gonna
talk
meet.
about that. We were discussing this and I talked about some of my history with that and
Mhm.
we had some of those discussions. So I didn't know that it also kind of got to that spot. So I think
I mean, I might be for it and I
Yeah,
might love
right.
Genesis, but I feel like somebody's telling us, this is what we're doing.
Yeah,
And you need to do it. And I thought part of
Yeah.
this was a collaborative thing. And I thought if it was a big purchase.
I'm not under the impression that it is a collaborative thing, though. I'm under the impression that this is a decision by the administration, that this is where they want to go, and it's up to the board whether or not we want to fund that decision. That's
that's a correct assessment.
right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I would love also to even hear more, see a demo about it and that kind of thing. I think that's awesome, but I don't know that we get to decide whether or not it's going to be Genesis or another application.
I think Irene was had her hand up first.
That is, yeah, absolutely. So they should absolutely get as much buy-in as possible for funding.
Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree with that, but I don't know that we have the ability to choose.
Yeah, Natalie, what would you like to say?
So just a point of clarification, Jim. So you're saying it's in the budget to fund a system? and
Yeah, I mean, we
then
pay
it's
for
your
Power
discretion
School
for
every
which
year.
system, Kind of like,
Right.
it's in the budget to fund.
Correct.
To buy basketballs and whether you buy them from.
Yeah, I mean, we have a student information system that we
Okay.
have to pay
I just-
for
that was
every
just
single
clarification
solitary
for
year.
me.
So, this year there would be some additional costs involved with the startup.
But
So what are we talking about?
That was in the budget that we already approved?
No.
This is in the upcoming.
That's in the
You're saying
upcoming
it'll be in the
budget. The
upcoming
upcoming
budget we're
budget.
about to approach.
But like
Correct.
$10,000, or you're gonna say it's in the budget, it's $240,000. Oh, but we already decided. I mean,
Obviously, if we said we already decided, well, first of all, it's not $240,000, but, if the board were to not, would not want to fund that and as part of the discussions, then we'd have to rethink. But, I mean, obviously, this is a student information system. The administration has done extensive work on looking at different systems and Genesis is certainly in our professional opinion, the direction that we should go, that will ultimately be in the long-term best interest of the district to do that. Much more parent-friendly, much more student-friendly, much more teacher-friendly. So, ultimately, if you decide you don't want to fund it, then that would be the discretion of the board. But-
Well, I'm sure Kelly, you're
Yeah,
gonna,
Kelly's
at some
Yeah,
point, you're going to.
Because we
tell us-
have those budget discussions.
Let me get to
why
that.
is it-
Kelly, hang on for 1 second. Kelly, I'm sure that during the budget process, you're gonna tell us what you're interested in doing and why you're interested in doing it. Is that correct?
Sure, absolutely. And also, we've made some areas where we can save money, make some cuts to make room for this. I can say that this is something that the district has wanted for a long time. We've become increasingly frustrated with the service from Power School, and we needed to make a change. And we just needed to be able to secure enough, the right amount of funding, or the pricing needed to be right. The Power School price was increasing, so Genesis became in the ballpark of cost effective for us for the first time. We've looked at it now 3 different times. It's been the first choice from the group of people who have looked at it and evaluated it 3 different times. This time we believed that the price was right based on what we were already paying for Power School to make that shift. I would just like to address, and Ms. Hayes, you are correct that what you read in the minutes, it's a little out of context there though, because the school that asked the question was from the high school. They had missed, every principal had presented this at a faculty meeting prior to the instructional council. And something came up at the high school level that took precedence at their faculty meeting over talking about Genesis. So the only school coming to instructional council who hadn't heard this was the high school. Everyone else was well aware of it. So I did respond, and yes, it was a blunt response, but taken out of context, I think it may be misinterpreted. Although I take the criticism. It's not the first time I've been told I'm blunt, but it
I
was
didn't
just
even know
that
who
one
said it.
school.
Kelly,
It's okay. I'm trying to be as direct as possible.
gotta work on that.
It was that one school who the principal was making the announcement 2 days later at the faculty meeting they were having that week. And that one school didn't know that we did finally make a decision. But this has been discussed at the district tech committee, the instructional council, both times this year. All the principals spoke about it at their PTA meetings. Dr. Stefankowitz talked about it at the PTA president's meeting. We went through many information sessions with Genesis before we ultimately made this decision. But it is imperative that we start the transition now, because we build the master schedule in the new system so that we can be up and running for next year. So it is not something that we could spend all winter into the spring deciding if we wanted it to be an effective transition. And that's why that decision was made the way it was.
Okay, Irene?
And Kelly, you said exactly what I was going to state. At our first instructional council meeting to open this school year, Genesis was discussed, and actually it was some of the high school teachers that had been playing around with it and found it to be able to do more things than Power School. So I knew about it, and it was in the minutes. And yes, your response was a little bit blunt, but you were assuming that everybody, I guess, had prior knowledge of Genesis. And I also saw on the minutes that PD was going to start as soon as possible for training, and then those teachers would go on to train other teachers in the use of Genesis, and that opening up next school year would also include more training for Genesis.
Thank you. Shwanda?
One question, when will the parents and students receive, whether it's a video like this high school counseling office did for scheduling, just something prior to the beginning of the school year regarding just any features that they need to know about with Genesis?
Or Kelly?
So- So right now,
I guess what I'm wondering, Kelly, is should we have a session that you basically can inform us of some of this, so we don't do, because then it becomes a little, we're doing things maybe a little too off the cuff here. Do you want to figure out how you do a session with us to tell us what the plan is?
I didn't mean for the, I don't need it for the board, I'm just speaking from a parent perspective.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
If other board members don't need it, I just want to know when.
No, we would certainly.
I can
do
answer
something
that.
that's Gonna roll that out.
Yeah, sure, Kelly.
Yeah, I can answer that quickly. Just so you know, the first part of this entire school year, the remainder of this school year is all back end things. Us building the system. There's nothing we don't want to show it to staff, parents, or students right now because they'd be looking at something that is blank. So we have to build it first. We have to spend the rest of the school year building it. And then as we roll into the summer, we'll have our students, our schedule, our information loaded into the system, and then we can show it to others. So yes, there will be instructions, videos, different things like that. We hope to use the ed tech team to help us with that, with rolling out informational trainings, things like that. So it really would be more summer, and then definitely, obviously, September. But everybody would have a chance to see it before that. Parents and students would get instructions on how to access their schedule, how to see attendance, how to, an overview of the platform. That would all be there, but we have to build it and put our information in the system before we have anything that is of value to look at.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
great. Any other comments for any other open old business that people want to talk about?
I had one for old. Can we revisit the virtual option for board members with a policy? I guess the same as we would do for the masks.
Yeah, we are. I think we need to put that on we are going to put that on the agenda. I have that on my list of things to put on.
But will we, the same way we'll have a draft next meeting for the students, will we have a draft?
I'm not sure if we'll have a draft. I think we'll have we might have a discussion of it next board meeting.
For board members
Yeah.
to participate.
I think we'll have a discussion of it next board meeting.
Only a half-hour workshop, right?
It's regular next.
Oh, it's a regular meeting next. Yeah. Okay, can I think about how we're going to do that?
Or at least suspend it another
I was
30
gonna say, you
days.
could always
until enough
suspend the policy
time.
beyond the emergency executive order has been in place, right? So you can extend the policy beyond, and that just buys you the time.
Yeah, let me look at the calendar and let me coordinate with Jim on the calendar on when we can do that, okay? Yes, Ms. Hayes.
I think a couple meetings ago, we talked about that HIB video, like that definition of HIB versus bullying that the counselors all did. And we discussed maybe the board can see it because it was very well done and it was common sense speak and all that. Was there any movement on that so that we can watch that video, or is that going to be made public on our website? It's a great video.
It was hard to hear a little bit of what you were saying.
I know, because our audio video in this building is horrible and I'm wearing double masks. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about, or I brought up a HIB versus bullying video that the
Okay.
counselors all did. And a couple of us said, oh, I'd like to see that video because it was really well done and it explains things. And I thought we said that we were going to watch it at some point. And so I'm just wondering, or is it going to be on the Facebook, on our website?
We talked about that at a meeting.
What?
Yeah, because not, we're all, I don't have no recollection of that video.
I don't remember that either.
Yeah, I remember.
Did I send it in an email? Maybe it was an email. But you said.
I
it was-
remember, I remember,
Maybe it was an email and somebody said, all right, I'll bring it up at the meeting, and it's never,
I'll look,
You'll look into
I
it?
will look into it.
Okay, great.
yeah, because it was great.
Any other?
So maybe that was new.
John?
business, sorry.
Just in regards to our last meeting, I just wanted to say, I did not have the pleasure of knowing Mr. McGrade very well during my time at the middle school, but I did have the opportunity to attend the ceremony for him. And I don't believe in coincidence as an individual. And one of the things that was said by his brother while he was eulogizing him was that his parents taught him that true happiness is found in the kindness that we display to others. And I think that could not be a better timing pertaining to what we are discussing here in this meeting today and that we're going to be discussing going forward. And I ask that as a community, we consider his example as a teacher in this district in that display of kindness. And the last thing I want to say that I learned about him at that ceremony was something that was written, and we all know this, and I think it's just not reiterated enough. But something that was said in that ceremony was written by a student on the eulogy website. It was a student who was suffering from severe depression during their time in the middle school, which we've all been in the middle school, and we know that the hormones are raging and there's crazy things going on. Our minds are going crazy. And this individual had said that Mr. McGrade was their guiding light that got them through it. And so I just want to bring that up to reiterate that our teachers at this school system are doing amazing things every day that we had no idea about. And so I'm truly grateful for that.
Thanks. Thank you, John. And I just want to say, I was at Mr. McGrade's service as well. And it was, first of all, it was just an incredible outpour of the number of people that were there. And it was, I wanted to say that, you forget how much individuals in general impact somebody's life. And then when you take it to somebody who I think was a local iconic individual and how much he really impacted so many people's lives and touched everybody, is really a tribute not only to him, but every other teacher that teaches in this district, and how you really impact everybody's lives. And it was a great tribute to him, and it certainly was an emotional day for sure.
they
So
needed a
thanks for
bigger,
saying
they
that,
needed a
John.
bigger boat.
They needed a bigger.
They definitely needed a bigger boat.
Yeah.
Very true.
Does anybody else have any little business?
I have one last question. I'm sorry it has to go after this. But for the HIB determination letters, can you provide to us who the contact person and phone number is on each of the schools for the letters, so that the parents have a point of contact to call if their child is, in fact, part of a HIB investigation, and who they can call and the phone number that's accurate and up to date with what, is going on right now?
Say what they are.
What?
Do you want me to answer it? or-
Sure.
Yeah.
if you want.
Yeah, so at the high school, it's the student assistance counselor. At the middle school, it's the student assistance counselor. At the elementary schools, it's the principal.
But I think
No, I think she's saying.
she's
put
asking,
it
can
on the
it
letter.
be on the actual letters? Because I guess they weren't.
She said to
Put it on the letter.
It is on the letter.
Oh, it is on the letter.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's
Oh.
what's on the letters.
Oh. Okay.
Mm,
Check. Okay.
Sorry, so but if a
I think
child
we're
needs,
outdated.
if a child needs counseling services, they call the principal, the principals of the
Are you
elementary schools are
are you
on the
talking
letter
about-
for the parents to call.
You're talking about on the HIB letter, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
So
the
it just-
principal's names are on them. Wasn't the question. It was the point of contact of who the
Yes.
parents can call.
For the elementary schools, the principals are the individuals who are listed as the contact for the person, for the parent. If your child is looking for mental health support, to contact the principal, and then of course, the principal would help direct them to the appropriate individual.
Okay, did the people that are on the letters though, are the anti-bullying coordinators or no?
Some are and some are the principals. And the principals are not currently our anti-bullying specialists.
I'm just confused. So then on the middle school, the SAC counselor is on there. The high school, it's the SAC counselor.
Mhm.
But on all three of the elementary schools, it's the principal who's the contact.
Yeah, the elementary schools are smaller, and for many of our parents at the elementary schools, the principal is the most widely known individual, and they're going to be able to be that point of contact for many things. And so, you know, they are that point of contact, and then they'll direct the parent to the, you know, to the appropriate individual.
Okay, so they're the ones doing the investigation still.
Those two things are completely different. One is. the
I know, but I'm
investigations
confused,
which are being
and I'm
done
sure
by-
parents are confused as
Yeah.
well. That's why I'm asking for clarification.
Yeah, the investigations are being done by the school safety specialists. The principals get involved in that process if there's discipline and things that need to be handed out, and because it's only principals that can do that. And in the letters that go out, it speaks, those come from the principals. But in those letters, it speaks to if there are individuals who, if any individual is looking for mental health supports, it gives you that contact. And for the elementary schools, the principals are asking that people contact them, and then the principals will assess what's needed and then direct people to where they, you know, where they need to go.
Okay, so the anti-bullying specialist name and contact is not in the letter.
It's not on that letter, but it's on the website. It's available to anyone who wants it.
Okay. I mean, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, for parents, if they're receiving a HIB investigation letter determination, it would just be easier for the parent to say, okay, so this person, if I have a question, I can pick up the phone and call this
Yeah.
person. And that person may be the same person as the SAC counselor. I don't know, but it just is very confusing to a parent, in my opinion.
It's a good point,
Yeah, I agree.
especially if you're getting a disturbing letter,
And-
open it and.
And like if you're I'll call the principal, but you're the victim, wait, why am I calling the principal's office? I don't know. I kind of agree as well, because why wouldn't we give parents as much information as possible, for one thing? And
Talk a little louder,
principal-
Alex. I'm trying to hear.
no, I'm sorry. I feel bad that nobody can hear me. I just think we should be giving parents as much information as possible. If it's on the website, I don't care. I mean, why can't it be on on a letter? If these people are counselors, are mental health professionals, I mean, the principals have a lot to do, frankly.
If I
Why-
could just jump in here.
Why aren't we? sending-
Absolutely. And a lot of times the parents are, you know, the parents have to be called and told the outcome before the letter comes. So they're doing that a lot of times, the administrator and the counselor or the anti-bullying specialist together. As you can imagine, sometimes they're talking though about discipline, and that has to come from the administrator and the parent. If they want to ask about the consequences, ask about the services, ask about any discipline that's doled out, really the administrator is the person who can speak to that. And sometimes those conversations can be confrontational and difficult. And so some of this is also to protect the staff member who maybe is not used to having adversarial type conversations with parents. So the administrator is there to support the anti-bullying specialist and really field some of those phone calls from the parents. But if it is mental health counseling that the student needs, the principal is either going to assign it to the SAC from Human Services, if that is the appropriate person in the building that day, or the guidance counselor, or perhaps a social worker, something like that. They're not providing the counseling. They're going to put the parent and the student in touch with the right employee to provide the service.
Okay, thank you for expanding on that, Ms. Feldman. Appreciate that. Okay, I think we're gonna go to new business. Anybody have anything on new business?
I do, but part of it was from last week as well, so I apologize. It touches a little bit on what Grace just brought up, only because we seem to have skipped for 2 weeks straight this under miscellaneous information for the board. So what Grace just brought up was the letters that we didn't talk about last week. Like, we didn't start off with and we never do job openings. I don't know. But, and then like today, we didn't go over enrollment. That's one thing that I've been asking for months was our special ed enrollment. So how can we, well, for one thing, is there a reason why we're kind of skipping that over, or is it just kind of, maybe there's an oversight also, but can we go over this enrollment figures at a future meeting, and can we get some data on growth or decline, because just giving the numbers doesn't really tell a full picture for this year.
Sure. So those items are, I think, have been placed on the board agenda. Please correct me if I'm wrong, for even, for many, many years as information. I don't think we've ever gone over them as a board unless there was a particular question. Typically, you're correct. You've asked for the special ed numbers. We were going to do that, and I think it just kind of slipped out of our brains, and we can certainly do that. But as part of the budget discussions every year that we do with the board, we always have these wonderful little enrollment graphs that drive everybody crazy when they look at them. And so we go into great detail about enrollment when we look at when we do budget. So, but we can certainly provide the special ed piece. Prior to that, I think Ms. Truba has indicated just anecdotally that it's flat from previous years. But we go into an in-depth conversation about enrollment when we do budget, because obviously that impacts staffing, it impacts a lot of different things. So that we will do, but those items like job postings and enrollment and other things that are placed under miscellaneous are typically there for just information purposes and are not discussed.
When you do the budget and enrollment, instead of having a separate thing on the special ed, can you include a special ed?
Yeah, we can tie it all together. If
Okay.
it's,
Good.
and that's coming up in a couple weeks. so
Okay, everybody okay with that? Okay, great. Okay. Anybody else for new business? Topic? No, okay. Now we're going to go to public comment. And at this time, would anybody from the public like to comment on any item at this time? Ms. Conway, is anybody on the line that would like to make a comment?
Yes, President Weinstein, we have two commenters. Our first commenter is Nicole Playku. I apologize if I mispronounce. Please go ahead.
Hello, it's Plaku, but you were close. My name is Nicole Plaku. I live over on 5 Kelly Court, right behind Wayside School. I have 2 children that attend Wayside Elementary, just so you all know. And I am one of the parents that emailed many of you respectfully expressing my opinion that masks should be made optional once the mandate is lifted in March. My comment is directed towards Mrs. Gilman. I had asked you, as well as the other board members, where you did stand, and it should be publicly known. It's important to know the thoughts of the board members that are representing our school, as well as our children. This is part of the election process, and it should not cause anyone to be appalled. I was actually taken back that that was so offensive to ask what your stance was. I was trying to get a pulse on the situation to see where we would stand come March, as I know many districts are handling it differently and some have different thoughts.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your comment. Next, Ms. Conway?
We did have another commenter, but I do not see her now in the meeting. Give
Okay.
me one moment and I'll just make
Okay.
sure. No, I don't see her any longer. President Weinstein, I don't see her any longer.
Okay. John, would you like to?
Can you just reiterate our policy on responding to emails and things like that for everyone who's listening?
Sure. I think, first of all, I think all the emails were responded by myself. And so any,
Particularly why individual members are not responding?
sure, I could talk.
Why,
about it.
why can't we say that?
No, I'm saying, I don't think he says that. Like,
Right, yeah, I'm asking, just for this, can we explain why particularly individual members and why it goes through the board president?
Yeah, I think, in
For
general
the
terms,
audience,
what?
for the audience is why I'm
Yeah,
asking.
yeah, I think in general terms, what we want to do is really just kind of have one focal point that responds for what the board as a whole is acknowledging receipt. I don't think we want to, I think we want to keep these responses pretty much about acknowledgement and appreciating your comments, and those comments kind of get shared with the rest of the board. We're not looking for individual board members to communicate and with the public. That's been our general policy. But
not a policy per se.
yeah, through the email,
De
through the email,
facto.
right, through the email conversation, right.
There's no written policy.
And so also when an email goes out to all the board members, we don't really want to discuss board business with all parties on the line. So we kind of filter that through the board president. And that's why all your emails, I believe, that I received, and I may have not responded to everybody in the same exact way, but I think I did, was I sent the email copying Dr. Stankiewicz and also Irene Miskelman as our vice president. And so that's our process here. But all your emails have been, all the emails have been read, taken to heart, acknowledged, understood, and put into both our hearts and minds as we're kind of thinking through what the next steps are. So John, thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you for reiterating.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Any other questions, Ms. Conway?
No, there are no further commenters at this time, President Weinstein.
Great, thank you, and thanks for moderating all this. So I think with that, can I get a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
And I
Great.
need a second. Just 1 second.
Second.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Have a nice night, everybody.
Good night.
Okay, bye.